The Justin Tucker situation went from bad to worse over the weekend as new details emerged on the Baltimore Ravens kicker. We talked about what was reported, as well as the Ravens bringing in a new intriguing coach who just happens to be a familiar face. All that and more coming up next here on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens Wire, here with you on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you so much for being here today on this Monday, making Locked On Ravens a part of your day and your first listen every day. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms, including in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe to the channel, and in audio form, where you can follow along and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're a 5-day-a-week plus more daily Ravens show, so we have weekday episodes without fail, 5 days per week, plus on the weekends. We sometimes have bonus episodes when the headlines present themselves. We go live after every single Ravens game, after every piece of Ravens big news, etc. So if you want some daily Ravens coverage, be sure to keep it locked in here on Locked On Ravens. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Hopefully everybody enjoyed their weekend, or maybe still enjoying it if you have today off. And we are going to be diving into some news that broke over the weekend. Yesterday, obviously, we'll kick off the show with the new Justin Tucker situation allegations, as we now have more women who have stepped forward accusing Tucker of inappropriate behavior. So we'll dive into the latest on that situation in the first part of the show. Then we'll move on and we will talk about the Ravens bringing in another familiar face to coach this team. And the Ravens are doing a lot with their coaching staff. We're going to dive into who has come in, who has gone out, because it has been a bit of a roller coaster, but in a good way for the Ravens. Then mock draft Mondays have officially begun. My rule is the week after the Super Bowl, we start those up here on Locked On Ravens. So I did my first mock draft Sunday, dive into that, and then I'll read out a couple of mock drafts that I got on social media. So let's dive into it here. Justin Tucker situation does go from bad to worse. And I kind of said, look, it wouldn't shock me. And I had no idea if there was anything else that was going to come out, but I was going to say, look, this probably was going to go from bad to worse. And we have seen it go. The initial allegations came out, then more women stepped forward. And now we have even more women stepping forward here, accusing Justin Tucker of inappropriate behavior. So it went from 6 initially to 9. So 3 more women reported and made allegations, and now that has gone to 17. 17 people have stepped forward here and accused Tucker. And again, it is generally, not completely obviously, but generally the same story here, where at these massage parlors, Tucker allegedly, according to these people, engaged in inappropriate behavior, made these women uncomfortable. And the report states that these 7 new accusers include women who say Tucker acted inappropriately at some of the city's most luxurious spas, including the spa at the Four Seasons Hotel and the Baltimore Spa and Salon at the Ritz-Carlton Residences, which has since closed and been replaced with a new spa. By the way, this all coming from the Baltimore Banner, who obviously they were the ones who initially reported the first allegations. And if you want to go read the rest of this story, be sure to go check it out over at the Baltimore Banner. This is where I'm getting all of this from. But the most interesting part of this article to me was that there was someone mentioned, and someone who was referenced in this article, Chris Rosica, who is Chief Executive Officer and President of Crisis Communications and Public Relations in this firm, Rosica Communications, which they say they don't represent Justin Tucker and they don't represent the Ravens. So this, I guess, is like an outside source for reference, is what I'm getting here from the article. And Rosica said Tucker's lengthy statement on X did not express any culpability, so it comes off as just strange to the average fan or consumer, for that matter, when 16 individuals have come forward and accused him of this. So also, he said, what's troubling is a number of people who have come forward and accused him of misconduct. And I know that a lot of people are waiting for the Ravens to release another statement saying, hey, we're aware of the updated allegations. You know, we're doing our due diligence. It's been pretty radio silent from the Ravens. And that is with them posting Pro Bowl content and them posting a bunch of other different content, season review stuff. And a lot of people are just like, we know you see what's going on here. You don't want to say anything. And obviously the Ravens, they're not going to, at least I wouldn't think they're going to call like some emergency press conference or anything. I'm not sure how they want to handle the situation. That's up to them. But I do know that the fan base, it feels like, and I think that they should release a statement just saying, hey, look, this is what's going on here. I don't know if they're going to do it or not, but I think that it would at least, send a message of like, hey, we're not just like ignoring and going radio silent on this whole situation. Now, also in the article, apparently Justin Tucker's attorneys this week provided a sworn declaration from the owner of Baltimore Spa and Salon saying that she never received complaints about him or suspected he had engaged in any misconduct. And the therapists from that spa said they did not report his behavior to the supervisors because they feared that they would lose their jobs. So again, it's kind of in this situation as if more stuff does come out or if it doesn't, the Ravens are going to have a situation on their hands where they are going to have to address it at some point. They can't, I'm not saying they're running and hiding, but it's like you haven't addressed it in terms of anything outside of just a statement that was given to, I think just given to reporters. I don't even think it was posted on social media. I just think that some reporters put it out there and that was it. So it's becoming like the fan base is, and I've seen this on Instagram, on X, on social media platforms. It's like people are saying, well, regardless of if it's true or not, the Ravens just kind of being silent on it. And it's like, okay, what's going on here? So I don't know if anything else is going to come out with this. If it does, obviously we will report the facts here on Locked On Ravens. The Ravens can save money by releasing Justin Tucker if they designate him as a post-June 1 release. They cannot officially make that move until the new league year starts, but they can announce it. So if they were going to release Justin Tucker, they could do that and they could say, hey, we're going to do this, but they couldn't officially make that move and get that saving until the actual new league year starts. I believe that's on March 13th, maybe March. It's somewhere in that like March 11 to March 13 range, right around when free agency starts, obviously. So the Ravens here, it is definitely a situation where they're going to have to figure out what they want to do. They're going to figure out what avenue they're going to take. And regardless of what avenue they're going to take, they should probably not jump to any conclusions, but figure it out. Because even if they don't want to jump to anything right now and, they want to gather information, gather facts, which, okay, I understand if they want to do that. Just staying radio silent on it is, I'll call it certainly a choice. So if the Ravens do want to move on from Tucker, obviously he struggled at the beginning of the season, got it together as the season went on. There are kickers out there. There are kickers in the draft you could take. You can sign a kicker if you want to. In terms of on-field production, yeah, Justin Tucker has been incredible over the course of his career. But obviously this off-field situation is not something you can ignore. And the Ravens, it's a tough spot to be in, but there are also the cries of how much should the organization know of this. This has been in a span, at least all of the accounts, from 2012 to 2016. So Tucker coming into the league as a rookie in 2012, all the way up to 2016. So all of the accusations, I believe, have been in that timeline. So we'll see. I don't know. It's a crazy situation and an off season where we're going to continue to talk about this until, I don't even know. We could be talking about this for months, years, however long the situation takes to play out. And I don't know if we're ever going to get full closure on this thing, but 16 different people accusing Justin Tucker of misconduct. That's a lot of people. So the situation is tough and we'll see how it all unfolds in the coming days, coming weeks, coming months. We'll see. Something could come out tomorrow. Something could come out next week, next month. But this has been a pretty rapidly developing situation about something that we even saw posted on social media of people saying this from back in 2021 of like, hey, this is what I've been hearing. And people are like, okay, how true is it? How true is it? And now that this stuff has come out, people are looking back on those posts from 2021 and being like, whoa, okay, maybe these people did know something. So we'll see how it all unfolds. We're coming up with the second part of the show. We'll dive into the Ravens bringing in another familiar face at a coaching spot on their staff. Be sure to stay tuned. A lot coming up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by FanDuel. When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started and there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting. Whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three, I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher still here with you on this Monday edition of the show. If you're an everyday or you listen or watch every single day, really appreciate your consistent support. If you are new to the channel, new to the show, welcome in. Hopefully you stay a while. And if you're somewhere in the middle, thank you for tuning in once again here to Locked On Ravens. I teased at the end of last week for video watchers, there might be a new thumbnail format. I couldn't get it going this weekend. I'm going to try to get it going next weekend, but I just want to let people know if there is a shift in the thumbnail formats, it is still the same content here on Locked On Ravens. Just trying to spice up the thumbnails a little bit. We've been doing just pictures, but I want to kind of get multiple people in the thumbnails. So just a little PSA announcement for the future as we continue to upgrade video, audio, and just how the show looks in general. But the Ravens continue to not completely overhaul their coaching staff, but they are certainly going to town on some of these positions, adding, taking away coaches, and not because people are leaving. They are actively firing guys, getting rid of guys, mutually parting ways with guys, and then bringing in replacements or just creating spots on the coaching staff. So over the weekend, we got news that the Ravens are reportedly going to hire another familiar face, and this one should please a lot of people, and I personally think this is a great hire. According to Matt Zenitz, the Ravens are expected to hire Anthony Levine as an assistant special teams coach. So CoCap reportedly back in the building. Someone who obviously was a special teams ace for the Ravens for so long. He was with the team from 2012 to 2021. He ended up working for Baltimore after he retired in 2022 as a personnel and coaching assistant, but then went to Tennessee and was the assistant special teams coach over in Tennessee for the last 2 seasons. So Baltimore bringing back Anthony Levine here reportedly is their assistant special teams coach. And this is a guy that knows the ins and outs of the organization, obviously is someone who won a Super Bowl championship with the Ravens his first year with the team and was a part of a ton of great special teams units. And I think we can all be honest here. And this is something, if you've been listening to me every day on Locked On Ravens, you know my stance on the special teams unit, at least how they've performed in punt and kick coverage, with returns, obviously. It hasn't been that great. It feels like there's been a pretty substantial drop-off, and I'm not completely linking that to just Anthony Levine, right? But it just does feel like over the last handful of seasons, you can honestly go back maybe 3, 4, 5 seasons. They really haven't had a punt returner since Jacoby Jones, or kick returner since Jacoby Jones, consistently, rest in peace, Jacoby, obviously. But the Ravens bringing back Anthony Levine, I think, should provide some stability. I think Chris Horton's unit has been too inconsistent, and we have seen either whether it is penalties, sloppiness, just giving up big plays. CoCap is somebody that can come in there and I think really install some values. And it's not that like Chris Horton hasn't been a member of the organization for a while. I mean, Chris Horton has been there for a pretty long time. Actually, I'm not sure exactly. We're going to do some live research here over on Locked On Ravens. How long has Chris Horton actually been with the Ravens, who obviously Chris Horton is their special teams coordinator. So, all right, he was part of their internship program. And then in 2015, the Ravens hired him as an assistant special teams coach. So after Jerry Rosburg announced his retirement, Horton was promoted. Look, if the Ravens, and I'm not saying it could happen if there's another bad special teams year, but you see some positives, or maybe the Ravens do move on from John Harbaugh and they hire internally, but they want to make some changes. It could be that does Anthony Levine take on an even bigger role? But this is a string, and I know a lot of people are essentially calling this year the power of friendship here for John Harbaugh and the coaching staff, because you've hired Chuck Pagano out of retirement. You've now brought back Anthony Levine, who was a big part of your team as well, as was Pagano. And Dean Pease obviously is going to take on, it's more of a lesser role, I guess, this year, but he was brought in last year to help out Zach Orr. And then even Dean Pease's son is going to be a member of the coaching staff. So it's like you continue to bring in guys who have had ties to the organization. But I think that's honestly a good thing, because you think about some of the teams like the Pagano defense in 2011 or Levine and his special teams experience, what he can bring to the table. I think it's good the Ravens are bringing back former coaches, former players, and it could honestly have a lot of lasting impact on these younger guys. Like, for example, I think a lot of people, when Sanusi Kane had the year he had, I know he had some injuries, but a lot of people were talking about Sanusi Kane as like, okay, could he be the next Anthony Levine? Because he had a great special teams year as a rookie. Now bringing back Anthony Levine, he can kind of take Sanusi Kane under his wing, Anthony Levine, and say, hey, this is how we did things back when I was playing. This is what you need to do. Great start, but here's how we can continue to evolve. And maybe he can turn Sanusi Kane into 8, 10, 12-year special teams veteran on the Ravens, which again is how guys make their living, and it's so important. And why the Ravens have been so good as an organization over the course of their history is because they do value special teams. Obviously, John Harbaugh coming in as a special teams guy, that has placed an emphasis on it, but it's like that unit has struggled, and we have seen the Ravens sometimes lose games that they maybe wouldn't have. The special teams unit had been able to do their job or something along those lines. So I think that the Ravens bringing in Anthony Levine is really intriguing. And I don't know, I guess just bring everybody back, bring Albert McClellan in and get Corey Graham back in here, bring the special teams aces back in the building. Let's just get everybody. You can bring all the former defensive coordinators. Wink Martindale, come on down. Mike McDonald, you're done in Seattle. You're back in Baltimore now. We're bringing in all the power of friendship guys here. And you know what? If the Ravens do win a Super Bowl this upcoming season, I'm not saying they're going to, but if they do, it'll be really fun to see those guys who either came out of retirement, came back to coach the Ravens, them get a ring and have that experience and contribute to that squad. So I like this hire a lot personally. And Levine can even, is a safety, defensive back, can teach a thing or two being an experienced vet. So experience matters. And while Levine does not have a ton of coaching experience under his belt, I think that he has enough plus the playing experience to really make an impact on that coaching staff. But coming up in the final part of the show, we're just a couple months away from the draft, and that means mock draft Mondays have returned on Locked On Ravens. So we'll dive into the draft that I did yesterday, as well as reading off some from social media that I got submitted to the show. So be sure to stay tuned. We got a lot coming up on Locked On Ravens. Back here on Locked On Ravens, Kevin Oestreicher rounding out this Monday edition episode of the show. Appreciate everybody again for tuning in here. We have a lot coming your way this offseason. Even in the offseason, we are 5 days per week. So if you want that daily Ravens coverage, be sure to keep it locked in here on Locked On Ravens. And be sure to keep up with all our coverage on social media. You can follow me on Twitter at KOStriker34 or X if you call it that as well, either way. And on Instagram, we're starting up the Instagram. At least we're restarting it up. I've been pretty consistent over there over the last month, and I'm continuing to build that up. So on Instagram, same thing, at KOStriker34 for all the social media content from me and the show. But let's dive into Mock Draft Monday. I'm really excited about this. I've been doing this ever since I started the show, and it's evolved over the years. This year, what we're going to do is we're going to read out a draft that I did for Mock Draft Monday. Well, I do it for Mock Draft Sunday. So on social media, you can see my draft early. But then I also open it up to submissions, and I try to get to as many as I can. I can't guarantee I can get to everybody's draft. I apologize for that. I try. We're going to get to a couple here today after I read out mine. So I'm just going to read it out. First up, we have, in my opinion, this is he's not going to be there, but as my saying goes, you take what the mock draft simulator gives you. Jelon Walker, linebacker out of Georgia at 27. Donovan Jackson, offensive lineman from Ohio State at 59. Omar Norman Lott, defensive lineman from Tennessee at 91. 128, Jordan Phillips, defensive lineman out of Maryland. 136, Mello Dotson, corner out of Kansas. 176, Nick Nash, wide receiver out of San Jose State. Jamon Dumas Johnson, linebacker from Kentucky at 178. Kyle Monangai, the Rutgers running back at 185, Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, offensive lineman from Florida at 205, Hunter Wohler, the safety from Wisconsin at 213, and at 245, Aeneas Peebles, the defensive lineman from Virginia Tech. I think this one is, look, it's build the trenches. I know people look at Jalon Walker, they see the linebacker tag, and that spooks them. Jalon Walker is somebody who has incredible versatility. He can play off ball, but is an edge. He can do that in passing situations. And I think the Ravens, they love their versatility. They love their, I would say, their positionless defense is what a lot of people call it. And Jalon Walker fits into that. They've experimented with some of their off-ball linebackers going to the edge. Malik Harrison did that at Ohio State, and they have done that with him. But I think Jalon Walker takes that to another level. And I think the thing is that it doesn't put as much pressure on Trenton Simpson, but it doesn't necessarily pigeonhole Trenton Simpson into being, okay, you're going to be the backup. If there's enough growth from Trenton Simpson in saying, hey, maybe you can do a platoon with Jalon Walker, or you can put Jalon Walker on the edge, and you can have him be that edge player. He's extremely explosive. The stats for sacks don't like pop off the page or anything, but he is that versatile, and I think a good team that gets their hands on him can really, really help him not only determine where he's going to be positionally, but also go and improve his game each and every season. Now, the thing with positionless players, or at least, players that play multiple positions, is that you can't yank and tug them around all the time. I know that a lot of people, the comp that the people want to compare Jalon Walker to would be maybe a Micah Parsons. We will see if that maybe is what Jalon Walker turns into, but I don't think he's going to be available at 27, but he was available at 27 here. So I ended up taking him. Donovan Jackson is someone who can play both guard and tackle. And I know certain people project him at guard, certain people project him at tackle. I know there are, just like Roger Rosengard and Kingsley Suamataia, there are a good, healthy dose of tackles that the Ravens, or even guards, the Ravens could take in the second round. I just went with Donovan Jackson. I know there are a couple of others that people like, and we'll talk about those as the weeks go on. But I think that Jackson could be a versatile piece. And honestly, depending on what the Ravens do with Ronnie Stanley, maybe they have a needed tackle and they want to put Jackson out there. Maybe they want to put him at guard and replace Patrick McCary there. We'll see. But we know Andrew Voorhees might be in that competition too. Omar Norman-Lott and Jordan Phillips, these are two guys at 91 and 128. You build those trenches up. Obviously, for guys like Brent Urban, who's a free agent, Michael Pierce, probably not going to be around for that much longer in the NFL. Project Washington has been pretty underwhelming, I would say. I think that your two pieces are Nnamdi Madubuike and Travis Jones. And for the Ravens, I think maybe getting some youth into that defensive line room. We saw with the Eagles, that was the number one takeaway, build those trenches. And so you pick a linebacker edge hybrid, an offensive lineman, and two defensive tackles. That certainly is building up those trenches. Mello Dotson at 136, high turnover cornerback. I could see the Ravens taking a flyer on him. I think he's just in the right place at the right time and could really make an impact, even in a lesser role. I expect TJ Tampa to have a bigger role next season, and maybe the Ravens just go and roll with their guys, even if Brandon Stephens does not come back, which I don't really expect him to. Nick Nash at 176, wide receiver from San Jose State. Big bodied player, really good, smaller school guy. I think this is a perfect fit for the Ravens and Nick Nash. He fits a profile of the Ravens needing that bigger body, and he's not going to cost them a day one or day two pick. So I think that we'll see, at least at this point, right? We still have the combine and pro days, et cetera, to go. But Nick Nash at 176, I think was a really good pick. Javon Dumas-Johnson, a special teams linebacker. I could see the Ravens maybe trying to take a flyer on him, take a running back at 185. I don't really get, look, the Ravens have a ton of picks. Like, it was hard for me taking 11 guys because you're just like, okay, can you fit all these guys on the roster? The Ravens don't need to take another running back. But I mean, I could have taken another edge guy. I could have taken another offensive lineman. Kyle Mononga is a really good player, but I just think that the Ravens don't need a running back. This was more BPA for me. Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, someone I think could be a steal at 205, developmental traits as an offensive tackle. Hunter Wohler, maybe a special team safety, defensive back, and then another defensive lineman around things out there at 245. So this was really building the trenches up. I personally was pretty pleased with the way this one went for the first mock draft Sunday of the year. Let's get to a couple more, though, from just listeners of the show, watchers of the show. I'm really excited to dive into this again. Community is a big part of the show for me, and I've always enjoyed reading out mock drafts on these mock draft Mondays. So let's first start off with one from Defensive Rookie of the Year, Nate Wiggins or Stephen Meyer 18. And Stephen, I know he submitted these over the years. So this is one where he says trademark pay Ronnie. So Mike Green, edge out of Marshall, is at 27. Wyatt Milum, the offensive guard out of West Virginia, is at 59. Gunnar Helm, tight end out of Texas, is at 91. Jordan Phillips, defensive tackle from Maryland, at 128. Mello Dotson, corner from Kansas, at 136. Malachi Moore, safety from Alabama, at 153. Ja Joyner, edge from Minnesota, at 185. Za Frazier, corner from UTSA, at 205. Gerald Christian Lichtenhan, the offensive tackle from Oregon State, at 213. And Nazir Stackhouse, defensive tackle from Georgia, at 245. I don't think anyone helped their stock more than Mike Green at the Senior Bowl. He is an incredible player, someone who plays with so much violent power from the edge position. Baltimore to get their hands on a Mike Green, it would be unreal. And we're going to talk about him a little more as the weeks go on. I'm definitely going to put him in a mock draft Sunday of mine. So I love that pick there. Offensive lineman in the second round. I think the Ravens, by the end of day 2 minimum, have to have at least one defensive lineman, whether that is nose tackle or you're talking about edge guy, one guy for your front on defense and one guy for the offensive line. 2 of the Ravens' first 3 picks should be defensive lineman / edge or an offensive lineman. This is interesting. Gunnar Helm, really good tight end prospect. This will be in the event the Ravens do trade Mark Andrews. I see we're on the same page with Jordan Phillips and Mello Dotson there. And then just rounding out the draft with another edge guy, another corner, stacking up the offensive linemen. So I like this draft a lot here. Let's get into one now from Tremor Pulse. Miles Frazier is our right guard. Jackson Slater would be our backup left guard. So Josh Connerly Jr., offensive lineman from Oregon, at 27. Trey Amos, corner from Mississippi, at 59. Jared Ivey, edge from Mississippi, at 91. Miles Frazier, offensive lineman from LSU, at 128. Pat Bryant, wide receiver from Illinois, at 136. Kyle McCord, quarterback from Syracuse, at 176. Jalen Reed, safety from Penn State, at 178. At 185. Vernon Broughton, the defensive lineman from Texas, 205. Jackson Slater, offensive lineman from Sacramento State, 213. Kyman Rucker, edge from North Carolina, and at 245, Dante Thornton, wide receiver from Tennessee. I like this draft a lot. Josh Connerly is someone that I think a lot of people are starting to turn their heads for the Ravens. I think he would be an automatic 10-year guy for them if they were to get their hands on him. But then building up the trenches with guys like Miles Frazier, Jackson Slater. But the most intriguing pick, not because of the player, but because of the position, and something I just haven't really talked about a bunch, so I want to talk about it, is the quarterback position, backup quarterback, Kyle McCord. And it's not about Kyle McCord. It's not about, the Ravens going to take a quarterback high or low. It's just about what does the backup quarterback position look like for the Ravens moving forward. Josh Johnson, not a long-term answer. I don't think people are sold on Devin Leary right now. So if you bring in someone like Kyle McCord or like a day 3 quarterback, I would not be shocked if the Ravens use one of their 11 picks on a quarterback again, and maybe they have Devin Leary and that quarterback battle it out for the backup spot for Lamar Jackson. So I like this draft a lot, though. Trey Amos is someone that I've kept my eye on a bunch, and obviously beefing up the offensive line, beefing up the D-line as well there with an edge, defensive lineman guy as well. 2 edges in this draft, actually. Good job here by Tremor Pulse. That's all I have for you here today, though, on Locked On Ravens. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. Coming up tomorrow, more Ravens content, of course, so be sure to like and subscribe to the channel in video form, follow along and subscribe in audio form. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.